January 1st, 2021 is tomorrow, so I'm making this a new intro to the Cognitive Evolution channel. I draw your attention to this lower middle section here. There are 4 blocks, and these correspond to the 4 stages of human cognitive development identified by Jean Piaget, who lived from 1896 to 1980. There's a sensory motor stage. There are sensory motor stages, representational stages, sometimes referred to as collectively as the pre-operational stage, concrete operation stage, and formal operation stage. Since he had a very long career, his first publication was at age 10, and he was publishing for well over 60 years. There have been some modifications to his stage theory, so we're taking one that's fairly common, but it isn't the most recent. We'll go over the most recent one another time. The formal operation stage, which we'll focus on first, corresponds to adult reasoning. And, the mystery was, well, where does that come from? And Piaget's answer is, well, I'll go look very carefully at all the steps to get there. And you see it come from sort of your initial reflexes that you have when you're born and how those are modified. And then you go through these cognitive structures that are qualitatively distinct, winding up at the formal operation stage, which again we recognize as human reasoning. Now, if we look around to other species, we don't see any that clearly have anything like formal operations. There are species that have language and cooperation and some, unexpectedly sophisticated cognitive operations, but nothing like really logic. So it stands to reason that sometime in human history or human evolution or the evolution of our ancestors, formal operations didn't exist. And so there would be a time in the past where you have the sensory motor stages, the representational stages, and the concrete operation stage, but there's no formal operation stage. And I would say, from my own research, it appears that at 10,000 years ago, formal operations did not yet exist, and it came to existence somewhere between 2 and 10,000 years ago. So that would make formal operations thousands of years old, but it is no longer the most recently evolved stage. I mean, since formal operations evolved, there's no real reason why there can't be a stage after formal operations that would evolve. And I've called this stage the metasystem stage. And so where does the idea, how do we characterize this metasystem stage? And interestingly enough, I rely largely on Jean Piaget, who said there weren't any stages or didn't identify any stages past formal operations. But he did write a book called Structuralism, which was published in French in 1968, when he was, 72 years old. And he is describing what he introduces as a movement called structuralism. But at the end, in his conclusion, he says it's a method. And my belief is more than a method. It's a stage in the same sense that the formal operations stage is a stage. In the growth of logical thinking from childhood to adolescence, which Piaget co-wrote with Elder, they say that formal thinking is hypothetico-deductive, and in structuralism they sort of compare hypothetical deductive reasoning method with the structuralism method. So it makes sense to me to say, well, the hypothetical deductive method is part and parcel of formal operations, and in the same sense, the structuralism method is part and parcel of this metasystem stage. So what is this method? So we will look here, and in the formal operations stage, one can develop theories or other systems of thought. So we have one here, and Piaget will say that any system can be divided between elements and the structure or transformations that can be applied to those elements. I have a solid border around the elements to indicate that we're conscious of the elements, and dash border around the structure and transformations to indicate that in general we are unconscious. We are not conscious of this aspect of the system. However, through a process of that he has a French term for, which has been translated in different ways in the book Structuralism, and I'm not going to say the French term, but it's translated to reflective abstraction in structuralism, but another book called Studies in Reflecting Abstraction, obviously, calls it reflecting abstraction. For my own purposes, I just think of these as two separate parts, reflection and abstraction, and that's how I'm going to present it here. In order for reflection to occur, there must already be some sort of structure that permits reflection to occur. So that's indicated here. It's its own structure with transformations, and it can then observe and bring into a person's awareness the structure and transformations that were part of the original system. Once a subject is aware of this structure, the original structure, it can be abstracted, and the transformations that were part of the original structure become the elements of a new system we refer to as a metasystem because it's sort of one level higher. And the structure that allowed awareness of the original structure then becomes the structure in the new metasystem. A metasystem, of course, is just another system, and in principle, reflection and abstraction can be applied to it to come up with a second order metasystem. And so this is what we are presenting as at least one aspect of the metasystem stage, is this reflection and abstraction method, and that this is not applied on a system-wide basis in formal operations. That is our conjecture anyway. So that's probably enough for this session. I look forward to looking at this in greater detail in future episodes or sessions or lessons. And I don't think they're lessons because I'm exploring. So anyway, thank you for your attention, and hope we can get together in the future.